Good evening, and welcome to the League of Women Voters of Bellingham-Whatcom County Forum for candidates for the County Council, Whatcom County Council. The Whatcom County Council is the legislative branch of Whatcom County government. The County Council is comprised of 7 members. 1 member is elected from each of the 5 county council districts, and 2 members are elected as the county-wide at-large representatives. All county council positions are nonpartisan, and the term of office for each position is 4 years. The county council meetings are hybrid format with both in-person and online or phone options available for participation. They generally meet on the second Tuesday of the month at 6 p.m. in the county council chambers. We're going to follow the following specific rules for this debate. There will be no opening statements. Instead, the introductory question is tailored to elicit responses consistent with opening statements. Candidates will have 1.5 minutes to respond and will make a 1-minute closing statement at the end. The order of questions and closing statements is by seat alphabetically, and they will be rotated each question. Each candidate has a challenge card. Can you wave your challenge card so we can see what they look like? Okay, thank you. Candidates may use this card to challenge or rebut their opponent's response. After being recognized by the moderator, the challenging candidate will have 30 seconds to state the challenge, and the opponent will have 30 seconds to respond to the challenge. Each candidate may use the challenge card just 1 time. Timer Eileen McCracken will be tracking the time, and there's a timer right on the screen. The timer background will flash to yellow when there are 15 seconds left, and then to red when time is out. I will ask you to stop talking at that time if necessary. Please don't make it necessary. We ask the candidates be respectful of the time allotted due to the limited amount of time that we have and our desire to include as many questions as possible. So with the rules covered, let's get started. Our timer, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So we are going to start our first question with Elizabeth Boyle, and then, oh, I'm sorry, I have not introduced the candidates. I'm so sorry. And actually, I've left out our important piece about our acknowledging our land. So let me go back. The land we stand on is the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Lummi and Nooksack people, the original inhabitants of Washington's northernmost coast and southern British Columbia. Please join me in deep gratitude for their ongoing wisdom and guidance as we honor their ancestors and acknowledge the Lummi and Nooksack people as the original inhabitants of this land. Founded in 1920, the League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan organization that encourages informed and active participation in government. Our mission is empowering voters, defending democracy, and to that end, we provide candidate forums so that voters can make informed voting decisions. The League never endorses a candidate or a party. Membership is open to both men and women, 16 years and older, and we invite all of you to join us. We say democracy is not a spectator sport. With that, let's get started. And there are 3 seats, and each for the Whatcom County Council, and each has 2 candidates. So let me introduce them. Whatcom County Council District 2, we have Elizabeth Boyle and Maya Morales. For Whatcom County District 3, we have Jessica Rienstra and Kyle Christensen. And for the Whatcom County at large, we have Barry Buchanan and Misty Flowers. So we are going to start with the first question. I'm sorry, we're going to go back to this. Elizabeth and Maya, you're going to be the first on. When it's your turn, you will be paired with the person that you're running against, just to be clear about that. So opening question. I will read the question once. If you need me to repeat it when it's your turn, please let me know. If you had a magic wand and could create one new opportunity in Whatcom County, what would it be?
Well, thanks, Kathy. I love that question. Magic wands are pretty
See,
cool.
that was a good
Um,
one.
yes. Um, my magic wand would be about housing. It would make housing available for everyone in our community, safe, affordable, accessible housing. And I think that if we were able to accomplish that through a magic wand, it would change our entire community. And for generations to come, people would have a much healthier, happier life. So I think that's my magic, is the magic wand would increase housing for everybody. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Maya,
Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here tonight, and thank you for putting on these forums, LWB. Yeah, this is a great question. I have to say that I actually think my magic wand trick would also be somewhat similar. It would involve housing for all, for sure. But I think what I would love to be able to do, since this is a magic wand, which means it might not be easily attainable, is to actually bring every single person in our county into wellness and thriving. And that includes housing. It includes equity. It includes representation in our elected bodies. It includes being able to go for any position, go for any educational opportunity, have access to, any park, any activity. I think that so much in our county is increasingly divided by class, and we are really seeing an economic divide that's growing. So if I had a magic wand, I would fix that divide, and I would really just bring every single person, the sum of us, not just some of us, into thriving here. Thank you.
thank you. I hope people are okay with my casual calling you by your first names. Are you okay with that? Okay, thank you. Okay, Kyle.
Yes. Well, thank you. I'm gonna stick with the same thing. Housing is one of the biggest issues we're facing right now, and I'm a real estate agent, have been for a while, and I get to talk to people every day who are looking at buying a house or trying to find a rental. And so this is one of those things that is so important to where we're here in Whatcom County. I would say one of the goals would be to increase the inventory. We've seen that, and there's a lot of statistics that show that if you increase the inventory, then there's less people competing for the same amount of houses. So I think we need to focus on getting infrastructure in place to our urban growth areas, because that's where the next projected growth is for our county. I mean, everybody's talking about 30,000 more people in the next 10 to 20 years here. And so we even have a housing shortage now. And so this affects how affordable housing is, and it affects homelessness. And so there's a lot of different factors. My solution would be to kind of help move that excessive regulatory requirements so that we can actually get housing in place. Right now, we have a lot of investors and developers who don't want to come to Whatcom County just because of those lengthy processes. We need to identify where we can put housing and then do everything we can to get the utilities there so that we can actually build it to help people have affordable housing in Whatcom County. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Jessica.
Yeah, thank you. I certainly agree housing is centric. I know the reason I'm running is I want to see the standard of living raised for everybody in my district, and I think housing is a huge part of that. But folks have covered that pretty well, and so I think if I had a magic wand, I'd really want to create opportunities where we can see every child in Whatcom County grow up in a safe, supported neighborhood with the ability to thrive. And that means that we're investing strong in early learning, affordable childcare, family supports to reduce stress on parents. We see and I hear at the doors all the time too many families struggling with the basics, from wait lists to get access to childcare to those same housing costs that others have talked about. And that instability really ripples into the schools. We see it rippling into workplaces and to neighborhoods. With a magic wand, I think we'd all probably like to do a lot of things, but I really want to make sure that our families have what they need, that accessible childcare is in place, that we have centers and after school programs that they can go to, that they have safe parks and healthy food. We know that these investments are not just going to give our kids a stronger start, but they're also giving parents the stability to work and to create a stronger economy for all of us. So at the end of the day, when children and family are supported, our whole community is really benefiting. And that's the kind of opportunity that I want to create, one that really balances those immediate needs with long-term prosperity. Thank you.
Thanks. Barry.
Yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. If you are joining this, and thanks for the league for putting it on. This is really an awesome opportunity to get the word out to our voters. I think my campaign theme this year is Right to Thrive, and if you go on my website, we talk a lot about that. But it certainly involves housing. It's such an essential piece of everything that we do and what we need. I've been very involved with the criminal justice system and how to rebuild that system into a more treatment oriented and compassionate oriented system. And every opportunity I found that works for any place across the nation, housing is involved. There's a housing element to diversion programs. There's housing elements to treatment programs. And if that's not there, you can't move people through the system on a continuum. And that's what you have to do. You have to be able to get people into the system and get them healed and make sure that when they re-enter, they have a place to go. I think if I had a really, really good magic wand, I would create a second magic wand. And I would hope for equity all across the criminal justice system and how we treat people in the courts, how we treat people in our corrections. I think we could do a better job, and I want to strive to do that.
Thank you. Misty.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and thank you voters for tuning in. This is a really important conversation that we're having. So, and thank you League of Women Voters for having us tonight. If I had a magic wand for Whatcom County, my focus would be on making Whatcom County resilient again. When I moved to Whatcom County, this place was thriving with economic development and creativity. The arts and music scene was huge. The opportunities for families and for children to grow up in a safe, thriving community was very apparent. And we've seen a lot of changes in the last 10 years, but really strongly in the last 5 years. And so my focus would be on creating more resiliency without raising taxes and growing government unnecessarily. That would include prioritizing mental health, increasing housing access, government transparency and accountability on how we're spending taxpayer dollars. That would also include supporting local businesses and really encouraging small and big businesses to want to come to Whatcom County again, to bring their business, to bring more living wage jobs. And then finally, creating that fiscal responsibility within government so that we're not wasting the resources that we have to really make a difference for all of Whatcom County. So that's my magic wand, and I look forward to doing what I can to bring that forward.
Thank you. I want to say thank you to everyone for paying so much attention to the time. Second question is, and Kyle, we're going to start with you. So just so you know, should the county take measures to conserve our water resources, such as sequestering winter runoff? If so, what measures should the county advance? And if not, why not?
Oh, this is a great question, and obviously very near and dear to my heart. With my past experience as mayor and flood recovery manager and director of the long-term recovery group. So let me answer this. I do think that there's a lot of opportunities, and I've been in meetings with the tribes, fisheries, a lot of state and federal agencies where we've had discussions. How do we do flood control, flood prevention that protects life, property, the environment, and improves fish habitat? And there's a lot of opportunities out there. There's been ideas of like adding some reservoirs because during the winter months, we have a whole bunch of water. And then during the summer months, when agriculture needs it and fish need water in the streams, that's when it's the lowest. And so I think that is one of the biggest things and the biggest opportunities is there are some good things out there to divert water during those flood times and then actually be able to reuse it and have it go back into the water table, during those summer months. So I've been in those meetings, and I think there's a lot of opportunities and a lot of good discussions that have been had. It's just going to take collaboration to be able to get everything done, and that's I think the how it is. Everybody comes with different ideas, and it's that everybody's going to have to work together. And it's just with the water adjudication as well, same concept. And so, yeah, I think there's opportunities for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessica.
Thank you so much for this question. Water is certainly one of the bigger challenges that we face in Whatcom County. So this is incredibly apt to have this discussion. And, you know, we see and hear about too much of it at some times of the year, not enough at others. And we really need to make sure that we are thinking about and taking care of our families, our farms, and our fish. How we manage this water is really going to shape our local economy, our environment, and then also our way of life moving forward. So I know I've heard about different availabilities and different issues that we are seeing with our water. With the tribal treaty rights, you know, that guarantees these in-stream flows for salmon. But I've heard that many of the rivers and streams are not meeting those flow rates. But then also from farmers about reliable irrigation and not having the conservation or efficiency tools to really ensure that their agriculture is not facing growing uncertainty. So I think at the county level, there is a lot that we can do, and some of it has already been mentioned, so thank you for that. But I really want to push for collaborative water planning that is respecting the treaty rights, that is sustaining salmon, and that it is keeping farms viable, because I do think those all actually work together really well in collaboration. And that means supporting watershed management, funding our culvert removal, riparian buffer restoration, investing in conservation infrastructure like irrigation efficiency. So really collaboration is the only way forward for this. Thank you.
Thank you. Barry.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with what Jessica just said about being collaborative process and having everyone at the table. That's how you solve, you know, large issues like this. As far as the sequestering piece, I think that is definitely one of the tools in the toolbox that we need to look at. Public Works is looking, River and Flood Division is looking at when they do projects, levee projects, and so on. They're looking at how might some direction or deflection of the river create a small area that might be a sequestering area for use in other seasons when it's drier. So it's a good idea. It's not going to solve everything, but I think, like I said, it's a tool in the toolbox. The other thing is that we have to be able during the adjudication process. I'm concerned that our private well owners are going to have trouble justifying their quantities into the system when they're going through adjudication. So I'm not sure if it's time to really start having a conversation about, do we need to find out exactly how much that some of these private well owners are using, so they can be able to prove to ecology just what their usage rate is. So that's kind of a side piece that's kind of concerning me, as how do we do that?
Okay, thank you. Misty.
Thank you so much for this great question. I think that the way we manage water in Whatcom County is on many people's mind, whether you're a homeowner looking at water adjudication or whether you are focusing on protecting the salmon and or potentially protecting people from flooding. So it's a really big issue. And I think that there's a huge opportunity for us to collaborate and to also increase how we manage our water. So my personal experience with that is my house has a living spring under it, and I spend year-round pumping water out of my basement to keep my house dry. But instead of just dumping it into the culvert where it gets wasted, I run it through the garden. And I think that there's a lot of opportunity for us to take how we receive rain and how we disperse it to make sure that we are getting the most out of it and that we are protecting our natural resources on top of that. I also think there's a huge opportunity when it comes to our lakes around here on better managing the health of our lakes. We have a lot of small lakes that during the summer build up bacteria and things that make it to where we can't use those waterways. There are so many different innovative things that we could do to actually increase the health of those bodies and be able to collaborate in that way as well. So water is a huge issue, but I think that with all of us putting our heads together, there's no reason that we can't move forward, take action, and increase the sustainability of our waterways across the board. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
Hi, and thank you for this question. I agree, Jessica and Barry, thank you for your answers. And water is clearly on the mind of everyone. This conversation is coming up in so many different conversations, particularly around the adjudication process. When I think of water management, certainly we can be looking at the sequestration, but I also think about the quality and quantity of water and what are we doing to protect the current water and how are we preserving our old growth forest and our legacy forest. How are we involving meaningfully the tribes? I've learned so much from the leadership of Lummi Nation, Nooksack, and how can we involve them to be really strong thought partners in all this process? And, it's funny, Misty, you said from your personal reflection, I was just, as you asked the question, I was thinking of a farm tour I just went on and we learned so much about these sustainable practices that different farmers are doing. I just want to embrace some of that new technology and seeing what they're doing is just, it was mind blowing. I was so inspired. And so to encourage farmers and our community to be thinking of water as this, we know it's this valuable resource, but how can we collectively care for it? Because we really need to maximize the water. So thank you.
Thank you. Maya.
Looking for my mute button. Yeah, thank you for this question. I don't want us to sound like we're a total echo chamber in here. I can't say that I vehemently disagree with anything anyone has said here so far. Certainly want to sort of double down on that emphasis on collaboration and really making sure that everyone who has a water interest, which is honestly all of us, is at that table. The one thing I will sort of say that is a bit different is that I think that there is a real piece here to a just transition and to really thinking forward to our futures about, this is so much further beyond this moment and historical usage. It's also to the future. And we're in a time when communities all over the United States are rejecting data centers. There is a massive push by big tech to build these data centers literally in counties like ours, where there is farmland, where there is, sort of like seemingly abundant water, in some places where there isn't really abundant water. But this is something that we do have to think about. And so as we sort of like plan to our futures, it's so important to do this adjudication process, to bring everybody to the table and look at how people are using water and look at like regenerative water practices and stormwater cleaning. But it's also so important to do some comprehensive planning and really plan to our values in the future as to how to protect those resources long term, because all it takes is one data center and we're kind of messed up. So thanks.
Thank you. Okay, third question, and we're going to start with Barry and then Misty. Whatcom County continues to struggle with gaps in behavioral health and addiction services. Given current budget realities, what specific investments or partnerships would you prioritize to improve access and outcomes?
This is such an important question that I've been really working hard on over the last 5 years. I'm chair of the board of the North Sound Behavioral Health Administrative Services Organization, which is the organization that provides services to the 5-county North Sound 5-county region. And they are an incredible partner. I wanted to start with the partnering because they are the ones that are really working probably the most effectively on finding the workforce that we need, because that has been a shortage and we struggle to find people that will come here and work for the wages that we have to offer and perform those services. So partnering up with organizations like the ASO is great because then you are also partnering with your other counties. We also have a behavioral health subcommittee from the 5-county coalition that meets regularly to discuss how we can work together, how we can collaborate on a regional basis and get more capacity and more services because people are struggling out there. It's just absolutely heartbreaking to hear some of these stories and to see it for yourself as well. So I think that is key part of that is the partnership piece, I think is so important.
Thank you. Misty.
Can you please repeat the question?
Sure. Whatcom County continues to struggle with gaps in behavioral health and addiction services. Given current budget realities, what specific investments or partnerships would you prioritize to improve access and outcomes?
Thank you.
Mhm.
This this question is very near and dear to my heart, and I am really appreciative of the work that has gone into recovery and support services for people struggling, especially in the last 6 to 8 months. I've really seen a difference in how we're mitigating and managing and helping support people. Where I see the biggest gap is in local recovery services, especially with inpatient care. A lot of people that really want support are having to go out of the county to try to find 30-day programs or programs that really focus not only on addiction recovery, but also that mental health aspect. And so I think one of the biggest things that we could do in Whatcom County is create some partnerships where we can bring those services into Whatcom County, to where those who are struggling to recover can get the support that they need right here at home. I also think that it would be really valuable to create a program for in-home recovery. I know it's a new innovative concept, but I think it's really important. A lot of families like mine are trying to support somebody that is struggling with fentanyl addiction. And there is a huge gap in being able to have a family support somebody that wants to come home. They don't want to go into a recovery center. And I just think it would be a huge opportunity for us to bring some of those services into a partnership with the family and with the bigger community to really help make long-term changes for those struggling with mental health and addiction. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
Thank you for this question. I'm trying to decide which area to go first. So I'm going to talk about youth mental health first, and I'd love to talk about the addiction services as well. One of my favorite bodies of work is around youth mental health and with a strong focus on prevention. And specifically, you mentioned with budget shortfalls or budget limitations, I think there's tremendous work to do around our youth. So first, we've been talking about increased number of third spaces throughout our community. We have a number of buildings that are already existing. We don't have to even build beautiful new buildings, but that's down the road maybe. But for the short term, how can we create safe, accessible, affordable places for youth to gather and create community with one another? That is one of the best forms of prevention out there. And the second body of work that I'd love to see, and we're working on this, is to increase the number of mentoring opportunities in our community. And that can be with our formal mentoring organizations, as well as really talking more about what it looks like to be a trusted adult, whether you're a coach, a neighbor, a family member, a friend. We all play a role in caring for our youth in our community. And so to me, those are two of the most important bodies of work we can be doing in our community. Specifically around behavioral health and addiction services, I get to do a lot of work in this area as well. And we hear time and time again how people are cared for in this process is so important. And how do we make sure the warm handoffs are happening, the connections are happening? People want to do this good work. We just need to make sure we're making the investments to do that good work for them. Thank you for this question.
Thank you. Maya.
Almost wanted to ask you to restate it, but I think I've got it. So it seems like it's really about. Oh no, it's fine. This is really about the sort of gaps in access and also outcomes. And so what I've heard when I've attended all hands summits in the past, when I've spoken with folks in our county health, when I've knocked on literal like RVs, tents, and vans while campaigning, because I talk to everybody, is that there is not enough access, there aren't enough beds, there aren't enough spaces, there are huge barriers to just getting treatment, getting in the door, and actually getting into a program. I also am very clear that a big piece of that is our lack of sufficient, emergency sheltering. We don't have like the pathways in to getting the care that people need. And so, I know I've fought for, 24/7, no barrier sheltering for people. We really need that. And we need to prioritize that because that's one of the entrances into folks being able to ask for help. But we do need to allocate funding to make sure we have additional beds in facilities and in programs. We need to make sure that when people need help, they can get it. And so that's reducing barriers, it's creating more efficient systems, and it's also attending to cultural competence within those systems and making sure that we're training up our local workforce into good jobs where they can do care well. So there's so much more to say here, but I think my time is up.
Thank you. Kyle.
Yeah, thank you so much. I look back to my experience just with the flooding, the 3 floods that we went through. And even in that situation, we noticed that there was a lack, and we would try to get funding from the state, from the county, from the cities, but there's just not a funding bucket specific to help, with that mental health aspect, even just in the flood recovery. I know we're talking about much broader here, but I think we're touching on an issue that should be a priority for us. And I keep hearing that we can't, and North Sound ACH and a lot of other county and government staffs, that we don't have enough mental health workers. We can't get people up here. So we might have to look at paying more money or looking at different ways to draw people up and then also to keep people. Because as you know, it's one thing to hire somebody, it's another to retain them so that they can build relationships with people and different organizations within Whatcom County to be successful. So I think as we're thinking of mental health and addictions, I think we got to look at the big picture. There's a lot of different things we need. And like I said, there's still people today when it rains, and here we are 3.5 years after the last flood, and people are still feeling that uneasiness, that anxiety, and that fear. And so I think we need to do a better job of finding funding just so that we can do what we need to do to get people up here and get staff and keep them. So thank you for the question.
Thank you. Jessica.
Yeah, thank you. This is also really near and dear to my heart. One of the reasons I went back to get my nurse practitioner degree was to specialize in psychiatry because I just saw over and over again the shortages we were seeing everywhere. I think the biggest gap I see is equitable access, whether that is access to be able to get on the internet and connect with somebody virtually, whether that's transportation to be able to get to an appointment, or even thinking about multilingual options for folks who need care but may have an even harder time and more barriers. But really, everybody deserves access to mental health care and recovery services because we know when we support people early on, it does save lives and it strengthens families, which really strengthen our communities and our county as a whole. It also lowers costs for our law enforcement, for our hospitals, and for each of us as taxpayers. And in Whatcom County, we know, as it was mentioned earlier, with children's mental health, about 1 in 3 teens are reporting depression, and many of them have considered suicide. And that is heartbreaking, and it's showing us that this is starting young. Most of the folks in our carceral system struggle with addiction or mental illness, and that again shows us that these behavioral health shortfalls aren't just hurting families, but they are straining our justice system as well. So I really want to work to strengthen these evidence-based diversion programs so that people who are struggling with these issues can get the help they need, as well as ensuring that we do look for school prevention programs and ensuring that our kids have the support they need where they're at and when they need it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, this next question, we're going to start with Maya and Elizabeth. So Maya, the county is working to increase the number of small in-house childcare providers. What are the barriers that keep childcare programs from opening, and how might the county remove those barriers?
Oh, I'm already unmuted. Okay. Yeah, great question. Yeah, I know that there are a bunch of different barriers to getting these set up. There's a high setup cost, there's hiring staff, there's a whole bunch there. And so I think the county can do a lot in terms of, first of all, creating like really clear steps and helping businesses do that. Making sure that like they're reducing any kind of, official approval and permit application barriers, making sure that, if there are inspections needed, that stuff happens promptly. I also want to say though that I'm really hearing from a lot of families that that childcare is still inaccessible. So that even though we're working hard to set up more childcare spaces, that families still are having a lot of barriers accessing that childcare. And so needing more support for families to be able to access that is also key. And I think one of the jobs of local electeds is to figure out how to lobby for more, working families tax credits and, making this more accessible for everyday folks who need it. I've also heard some really great ideas about how to facilitate this program of the sort of empty spots and being able to sort of like drop kids off on the fly and how to make that function smoothly, maybe use an app, things like that. And so I think there's a lot our county can do to make this easier on the entire ecosystem of childcare, from folks who are trying to set up provider spaces and have places where people can drop their kids off to folks who use it.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
Kathy, would you mind repeating that question?
Sure. The county is working to increase the number of small in-house childcare providers. What are the barriers that keep childcare programs from opening, and how might the county remove those barriers?
Great. Thank you, Kathy.
Mhm.
I am so grateful the Healthy Children's Fund is a part of this conversation. I think it's one of the most beautiful, wise decisions our community has invested in. So, and even though the funds are there, we still have some challenges, right? And so what I understand is that there's a couple things with new providers or expanding their operations. Is one, like, what does this look like? We're asking people to really dive into expanding their business or starting a business. And thankfully, the Healthy Children's Fund is making themselves available, or team members available, to partner and walk alongside those operators or potential operators. And I'm so incredibly grateful they're thinking more strategically like that. Like, how can we partner with people to make this possible? But what I also understand that's really tricky about it, it's still the cost of paying employees, and even in a small center, and then the overall affordability of living in Whatcom County is so high that it's hard to keep people when your costs are still limited, or your payments are still limited. So I think we really need to consider, there's some opportunities within the Healthy Children's Fund. They're trying to look at providing training and some other like add-ons that can make it more attractive for people to stay in as a healthy or as a childcare employee. But I would just love to see more opportunities come from the fund. There's some incredible work being done by an amazing team, and I'm super grateful for the work. We just need to keep removing the barriers so everything can be implemented well. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica.
Thank you. I think all of us can agree. I kind of like it when that happens, that each kid deserves a strong start. Every child here deserves a strong start. And we see that when families have access to affordable childcare, it doesn't just help the family, it also strengthens our whole community. And we know that. The research shows us that every dollar that we invest in quality childcare saves us about $9 in future costs. And that's through better health, reduced incarceration, and stronger school outcomes. I think that right now, Whatcom County is facing several barriers to this. One is, as mentioned, the higher cost of operating childcare centers, the shortage of qualified workers, and then also at times zoning and permitting rules that make it harder to open new centers where families actually live and work. These challenges really drive up the costs, and they're keeping parents out of the workforce, which is hurting the families and our economy. I think we do have solutions that are within reach, making sure this Healthy Children's Fund is spent effectively to expand affordable childcare, streamlining permitting for centers in neighborhoods that need them, and partnering with schools and nonprofits to share space and to share staff. We can also support training, look at wage programs so that childcare work is sustainable in our communities. It is a tool that is needed and respected. Healthy children really mean healthy families. And again, healthy families give us these healthy communities. So when we invest in our kids, and it is truly an investment in our future, we're building this stronger foundation for Whatcom County, not just for today, but for our future generations as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Kyle.
Yeah, thank you. So many good things have already been said, but I think I would just add that we just need to be creative. From what I'm hearing in the rural part of Whatcom County, I mean, we have such a need, but it's finding a location. And so I think we have to, and elected officials need to really take ownership of that and say, hey, there's an empty building right downtown on Main Street, that would be a great fit for this. And I do think that it is important to pay people what they're worth. I hear this again and again, and you see this in these kind of discussions when we're talking about paying the mental health professionals, and now for doing childcare at these areas. So I think we've got to look at how can we make this work, because you can throw a lot of money at it, but if you don't have people that are willing to stick around and invest. And so if you have a revolving door on staff, we're gonna see the same things we're seeing on everybody that's supposed to be helping with all the mental health issues and the addiction issues and the recovery issues on that. And it's the same with childcare. It seems to be this revolving door, and we need to make it worthwhile and make people feel valued, because this is important to all of us. And I agree, it affects every single one of us, and we need to have our kids a place for them to be safe and well taken care of. And that means we're going to have to pay people to do that. So thank you.
Thank you. Misty.
Thank you for this question. I think it's a very complicated answer, because there were a lot of childcare centers that were shut down through government mandates over the last 5 years. And some of those problems were because of those government restrictions. It forced small private childcare centers that really offered creative options for families to come. And one of my concerns with the childcare or the Healthy Children's Fund is we are taxing people that can't afford childcare to pay for childcare and then expecting them to be able to access these services. And it came with good intentions, but it has actually caused more pressure on families to try to find childcare. It has caused more restrictions on people wanting to open childcares. And I think that there's a lot more collaborative ways that we could be supporting childcare. But right now, there's a lot of talk about building out childcares and not necessarily getting returns on that. And so a lot of families are struggling to make sure that they can even go to work and get the support that they need, and then be able to pay for those services that they're partially paying in their taxes now as well.
Thank you.
It's
Barry.
unpopular, but that's my opinion.
Barry.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Childcare is a absolute economic barrier to families and working families and businesses as well. And we need to do more to actually get the Healthy Children's Fund working for us. I'm a little frustrated by the lack of nimbleness of the administration and how they've gotten kind of caught up in kind of the bureaucratic things we get caught up in procurement. But I think they missed a huge opportunity when they broke off negotiations with Bellingham Tech School on a workforce development, like a cooperative. It was so rich with talent and so rich with collaboration across our whole community to work on that really important workforce piece that Kyle just mentioned. We have to have a workforce here to be able to manage all this work, and we have to be able to pay those folks as well. But yes, big opportunity missed. I did drop a resolution back in the end of last year, asking the administration to be a little bit more efficient in getting contract dollars out the door. Because if they're just sitting and it's just sitting there, they're not going to work for our community. And that's not the intent of the Healthy Children's Fund. It's to make sure every kid has a great start and is ready for kindergarten.
Thank you. Okay, Jessica and Kyle, you're going to be the first up for this one. Jessica, you're going to go first. With the upcoming spring 2026 retirement of Planning Director Mark Personius, the county is conducting a nationwide search. What qualities and experience will you advocate for in selecting the next planning director to guide Whatcom County's long-term development and growth?
Thank you so much for this question. This is incredibly important. I think, as we've all touched on, it impacts many of the topics that we've already discussed when we're looking at long-term planning and development. I'm glad that we're casting a really wide net to look for an expert in the field that will fit well in our programs here at Whatcom County. I think what we need to be looking for is somebody who is creative, who obviously has the expertise and the background and experience working, and also who's looking at balance, right? We need to be balanced, looking at growth, at our housing, at our farmland, at our infrastructure in ways that are serving today's needs, but also someone who has that vision to look for the future. So is this resolving a crisis we're facing right now, or is this also something that's investing in our healthier future that's not going to cycle us back to something that we'll have to deal with again in a few years? And so I think looking at that balance again and making sure that we're really future thinking, finding somebody that aligns with those goals. I think being able to listen first, being able to collaborate, bring people together, weighing competing priorities with fairness and respect for everybody at the table. I've worked across a lot of different sectors, and I think that collaboration, transparency, and persistence are what effective planning require. It's never just about lines on a map. It's really about making sure that families can afford housing, farmers can keep farming, and our natural resources are being protected. So thank you.
Thank you. Kyle.
Yeah, so I've said this publicly before, but this is a great opportunity for us, and I love that it's going out at a national level. I think a lot of the inefficiencies we've seen, and I've talked to a lot of developers, investors about this, is like I had mentioned, the barriers and the time it takes for permits to get approved. So we need to do a better job. And this is an opportunity and for Whatcom County, and I hope Bellingham follows that too. Because if you look at the rural cities, they have expanded, very quickly because there's no other places they haven't been able to do it. And so again, length of permitting processes are what really sets people behind, and it ends up inflating costs when people buy property and want to develop it, and they're sitting spinning their wheels. So we need to take some of the nuggets and what's working in the small cities. The developers there, they're still putting in big developments like housing developments, but what they're doing is they're working with one or two people. Where we run into problems in big city Bellingham or Whatcom County is you're not dealing with an investor, or a contractor isn't dealing with one person. They're getting passed to there's going from this desk to this desk to this desk. And I am convinced that we could be more efficient and actually bring a lot more housing. And if we could convince people to do it, because we can do it in a way that is successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Misty.
Thank you for this question. It has been an ongoing conversation regarding planning in our county, because there's been a lot of concerns about the lack of ability to build out, to create housing affordability and access. And so some of the tools that I think that a planner needs to have is that collaborative approach, of course, to be able to communicate across the board with the planning department into the different areas, like Kyle mentioned. That has been a big concern, that the smaller cities are able to move forward on projects quicker because they're able to collaborate within all of the parts of the permitting process in one go, versus this ongoing drawn out process that costs time and money. And then of course, somebody that is innovative and that can see big picture and future focused, because we have a lot of projects that we need to build out, and we also need to be able to build understanding that we are going to have an increased population, and how to do that in a way that really strengthens Whatcom County instead of destabilizes it even more. So thank you.
Thank you. Barry.
So first of all, I want to have a creative and a responsive and a bold planning director that won't be afraid to do a code scrub to talk about the kinds of things Kyle mentioned about inefficiencies in processes. I would love a community process like we had with the jail on code scrub. I could talk all night about that, but also transparency in the SEPA process. The planning director is by default the SEPA officer for the county, and they are the ones that make all the determinations when an application comes in. So I would love to see a lot more transparency and working with the council on what's going on in some of those things. And also they have to work well with Public Works. That's a absolute critical collaboration that has to take place, because when we're talking about river and flood, we're talking about all those things, and roads and transportation, all the things that Public Works has to have input in when we're projecting our growth and when we're doing just emergency things. Planning and Public Works have got to be intimately connected.
Thank you. Maya.
I love this question because I've done recruitment before, and so I just started like, woo, what are all the qualities I want? I'm going to answer this from perspective of a future council member, what I want to see in a planning director. I want it to be a woman. I want it to be someone who understands race, class, ethnicity, and equitable access to everything folks need. I want it to be someone who has solid experience, but I also want them to be, as Barry mentioned, visionary. And I want them to be able to think out of the box and be really open to working with all of the folks in government, but also people in neighborhoods, to really like expand what we think about as good planning and how to make more housing happen very quickly, as well as like access to transit, access to food justice. We still have food deserts. That should not be happening in 2025. So there are so many things I want from this person, and I'm so excited by this question. I also want to say, I actually happened to knock on the door during my campaign for primary of someone who worked in a previous role at the planning department, and learned from her like so much of the history and what that's like. And so I also want to echo what Barry said about that communication. I think it's critical that we get somebody who is really great at communicating and being proactive about that and going to the council, going to PUD, going to Public Works, and really having open channels with the county exec as well.
Thank you. Elizabeth.
Thank you. Great answers, everyone. I'll build on them a little bit, but I agree with everything that folks were sharing. I think one thing I would start with, and I imagine this is happening, but I would ask their team, what kind of skill sets are you looking for that would really help you do your best work? One of the most important things we can do is look to the people already in the midst of the work and learn from them. And so I would do that first. I'd also be looking at the same skills that everyone else mentioned here tonight. That strong desire to collaborate, to listen, the curiosity, and that willingness to go out and learn from other members of our community. And then in terms of a value set, I personally would really hope that that they would really believe in housing, especially dense housing, and really with a lens towards conserving our farmland and our forest. And to me, those aren't necessarily skills, it's more of a value, but that's what I would be looking for in the next planning director. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to start with Misty for this next question. The county is moving forward with plans for a new jail facility. How will you ensure that the mental health services and diversion programs promised by the county to Whatcom residents are adequately funded, implemented, and maintained?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, that's very near to my heart. I think that any sort of criminal justice does need to have the mental health and recovery process involved in it, because the only way to reduce recidivism is to give people the tools that they need to be making better choices. So those services are absolutely vital to a strong and healthy society. That would be a major priority for me. I know that there's a lot of concern about our jail and it not being big enough. So we're currently shifting people out of, criminals. We're paying a lot of money to actually send them out of our county and place them elsewhere. It's costing a lot of money. And it is actually encouraging people to continue criminal behavior because there's no accountability and then there's no services. So those are huge problems we have. We need to get started on actually building it out. There's been a lot of talk and not as much action. And I would definitely be prioritizing that on the council as I move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Barry.
So I think the first thing that we have to do is all during this planning process that we're in now is we have to have those behavioral health and substance use treatment things up front and right on the table, and it never leaves. It's always part of the conversation in every meeting we have. That's number one. Number two, we have to stick to the values that the voters voted for. We made promises to the voters through that ordinance that we put it on the ballot with, that we were going to have 50% of the money spent on behavioral health services. So we have to be true to that. We have to, like I said, we have to examine it as we go, and we can't start deprioritizing the health side. We can do things like look at how do we operate flexible space, where you could have a space in a housing pod that could be available for treatment, available for any kind of educational, like GED classes or any lawyer attorney visits. But having flex space can be a big cost savings. So we have to look at how we can save money on the physical plant, therefore not having to give up the programming things that we want to do, like prosecutorial diversion into a behavioral care center, which would be an alternative to actually being booked through the jail. So I think there's a lot of opportunity. We just got to keep our nose to the grindstone.
Thank you. Maya.
Yeah, this is a big question. I know I've spoken a lot about this in other venues. I think that what was promised to voters is obviously now unrealistic. It's important to say that. I think it's also really important to say, and I heard Heather say this at the All Hands Summit straight out, which was that, some voters thought they were getting something different than what was actually in passed. And so I think what we've got here is a little bit of a crisis of like what's realistic and what we can afford and how much of our county budget is that going to take? So I think what we've promised to voters is obviously not funded fully right now. I'm seeing council members do lots of backflips trying to justify, no, it's all good. We got this. We're going to move this to that pot of money. We're going to take care of this. I'm hearing folks commit to making sure behavioral health is on the table. At the same time, when we look at the actual plan, this plan was really a jail first, build the jail first model. It also included provisions that once the jail reached 70% capacity, the jail would then automatically double and then double again. So I think that we've backed ourselves into a serious construction problem where we're looking at a major funding crisis in terms of that behavioral health funding. So what I think we need to do is solve that issue, hash that out, and we also need to actually prevent incarceration. We need to prevent people from being held in our jail who don't need to be there. I think I'm out of time, unfortunately.
You are.
And
Thank
I will
you.
say, in fairness, 90 seconds is not enough time to answer that question.
Contact the league. Elizabeth.
Well, I'm going to echo what other folks said. We made a promise. We made a promise that 50% of our funds were going to go to behavioral health services. And I'm committed to doing everything we can to uphold that promise. This is an opportunity for us to reimagine criminal justice in Whatcom County, and the behavioral health services must come first. To me, jail should be our last resort. So we should be really looking at prevention and diversion, everything possible to keep people out of the jail and get access to the care they need. I've had the opportunity to work on many intersecting issues around this, and I am in awe of some of the folks I've dealt with recently that have served time in our local jail and are willing to come back to the table and say, I want to help. I want to help make this better for the next person. And to me, that is like the most beautiful, they're some of the most beautiful people I've ever met. And they keep coming back to us, behavioral health, make sure we have housing when we get out of jail. Like, first of all, don't, let's keep out of jail. But if we've served time, please help us get the next chapter right, because we're sending them right back into really challenging conditions and where trauma occurred in the first place. So I'm going to keep listening to the people closest to the situation and keep learning from them. What happens now?
Well, you finish.
Okay. Well, I'll end at that point. But I'm really grateful to keep learning from people closest to it. So, thank you.
Okay, so we have a challenge from Maya, and you get 30 seconds. And then Elizabeth, you get 30 seconds.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I realized I have this challenge card and maybe I can have 30 more seconds to say what I need to say here. I think it's really disingenuous to talk about jail being an opportunity. Jails are not opportunities. They are carceral facilities. And what I want to say about that is that I really think it's important not to spin incarceration as something good for folks. We still do need behavioral health. We need services and we need care inside our jails, but they are not caring spaces, period. And I think it's so important to be very clear about that and to be crystal clear on what you helped write as a consultant for the county.
That's your time. Thank you. Elizabeth.
To be clear, Maya, I did the graphic design for the project. I did not write a single word of the project. So let me clarify that. And I think you knew that. I also do not believe, and I just said the jail is our last resort. To me, the Justice Project has been voted on. It's here. We have the opportunity to decide how we're going to use those funds to better care for our community members. And I'm committed to doing everything we can to better care for our neighbors. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Jessica.
Yeah, thank you. I'm hearing some different thoughts and feedback. But behavioral health does prevent recidivism, so prevents that return to jail. It makes perfect sense to me to continue to fight for what we did promise to the voters, that 50% of behavioral health in this jail. I will continue to fight for that. I will continue to believe that is something that is possible. I think we can find creative ways to actually make that happen. We're investing these dollars into our jail. We need to make sure they're used effectively, that we're staffing them appropriately, that they're sustained over time. I'm really grateful to have the endorsement of Sheriff Tanksley as well as Whatcom County Prosecutor Eric Ritchie, and having discussions with them about their interest in meeting these goals as well has been very encouraging. And it is going to take a lot of collaboration, a lot of creativity, but the promise to the voters was that we were going to be investing in these behavioral health services, and we know they're evidence-based. They are overall going to be creating better health for our entire county. We need to also ensure that we're looking at staffing. Staffing is really critical. Without trained counselors, peer supports, and medical staff, the dollars don't really translate into real care. And so we can't just invest into the position, but also into recruitment, into fair wages, ongoing training. And I'd actually like to see those jobs and training happening inside our county, not as others have mentioned, like pulling them from outside. But I want to see us creating our workforce here and putting that money back into our county and creating a stronger county while we provide this really critical and important service that I truly believe in. Thank you.
Thank you. Kyle.
Yes, thank you. So I too, just like everybody has said, the incarceration, behavioral health, rehabilitation part of it, we need both. And I would say, I've seen firsthand a lot of successes with, like a sheriff work crew. They're outside working, doing something productive. There's also these work release programs that have been very successful. Where I was a deputy many years ago in Oregon at Umatilla County, they had a work release program where, there was a certain level of freedom where people could go out and get jobs, and then they would come back, and have a little bit of accountability on their time. And so I believe there's so many good opportunities for this behavioral health side. And I've seen firsthand, having worked in a jail, the incarceration part, but you also get to see the opportunities, and you see people that actually get out of that lifestyle. And it's because of these different rehabilitation opportunities, whether it's their struggles with addiction, these different programs where they can start to make good first steps on their own. And then that's where it translates, where they can get plugged in and be a productive member of society instead of a repeat offender. So it's so important that we continue to keep this promise to the voters. And I agree completely that we need both. We need incarceration to keep people safe, and then we also need the rehabilitation.
Thank you. This is your last question, and then you'll have your opportunity to do closing statements. So we're going to start with you, Elizabeth. What would you propose to diversify Whatcom County's economy or to create new economic opportunities?
A great question. Thank you. That's a great question. I think I would turn one of the most important things we can do for our community is to make sure it's more affordable. So we need to be looking at higher paying jobs, good living wage jobs. And I think I would turn to the business community and say, what is it we need to do to remove the barriers to encourage more economic activity and growth here? And I know that both childcare and housing have been a big part of tonight's discussion. And when I talk to business owners about growth or bringing new business to town, those two areas must be addressed so that it's more affordable to build a business here. So I think I would turn to the business community and ask, okay, so what are we going to do? Housing, childcare, and what other barriers do we need to remove to make it more affordable and attractive to create growth in Whatcom County?
Thank you. Maya.
Can you restate the question for me this time?
Sure. What would you propose to diversify Whatcom County's economy or to create new economic opportunities?
Yeah, thank you for this question. I'm a big believer in like business incubator programs, training programs, workforce development. And so I would love to see the county take a really forward role on that and make sure that there are a lot of supports to folks who would like to start a business who are not traditionally owners of businesses. And I think, when I hear that question about diversifying, it's not just the kinds of businesses, it's also who gets to own a business and operate that business. I also think that, there is something to the actual, various kinds of industries that we attract and are able to bring here. And I do think there is a piece to this sort of like forward thinking, visionary, future thinking. What I hope is a climate justice forward future for us that I think, we need to be looking at what are some of the future building industries that we can actually attract here that have the ability for us to create green jobs and the ability for us to have, jobs that have really great wages and, that we can train locally for, but that are also going to help our climate and not harm it. And I think there is so much future development that is really kind of in extractive industry and in industries that are pretty rough on our planet. So I'd really like to see us look at that and incubate really creative climate forward businesses.
Thank you. Kyle.
Yes, thank you. So, um, in response to one part of that question, I know that Whatcom County, Port of Bellingham, Bellingham itself, they all have economic development funds. So, using that, it sits there. I think we need to do a better job of, reaching out to businesses that we would like to see come to Whatcom County, because with the rising costs to live here in Whatcom County, we need those higher paying wages, family wages that will be able to afford to be able to stay here with these high prices in housing. So I think we need to do a better job of using that money, because the economic development fund money sometimes just sits there. And a good person to talk to, like the port, is a great example. Like they have a lot of good land that is zoned for industrial use, commercial use, that we really need to get some good businesses in there so that it can help our economy. That's really what you have to do. And with rising costs to do business, we haven't really talked about that today, but when I'm out talking to business owners, a lot of them aren't even investing in Whatcom County or the state of Washington right now. We need to do a better job of finding that balance where we're not over regulating and overtaxing, so that we actually can stimulate economic growth here in Whatcom County again. Because right now, I don't see that. People need a reason to want to come here. Thank you.
Thank you. Jessica?
Yeah, thank you so much. Again, I think an area we may all agree on is that everybody does deserve an opportunity to earn a good living here and to build their future here and call it their home. A strong economy is not only attracting new businesses, that is a part of it, but I really feel strongly that it's about making sure that people have the skills and the support to succeed. A lot of families that I've talked to, especially in the more rural areas, are facing super long commutes. They can't find local job opportunities that pay enough to cover their bills. And I know that agriculture, renewable energy, healthcare, and the trades are growing industries in Whatcom, but employers are still often struggling to find trained workers in those areas. And we also know small businesses are the backbone of our economy, and they're still facing challenges to get started or to stay competitive. I really want to support policies that connect education to opportunity, much like many of the ones that I was fortunate enough to have. That means investing in job training and apprenticeship in trades, healthcare, energy, agriculture, so that young folks and that also workers changing careers can find good paying jobs right here at home. It means supporting our schools, our community colleges, our job training centers as partners in this economic development. And it really means making it easier to start and grow a small business while also ensuring that new industries create family wage union jobs. Our economy is shifting, but I know that with the right investments, we really can pour into people's skills and our local businesses and make sure that growth is benefiting everybody here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Barry?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the Port of Bellingham. I think it's important to recognize they are our arm for economic development. That is who we need to really make sure that we are supporting the port in their efforts in their economic development work. And part of that is that Kyle mentioned the Economic Development Investment Funds. That's a rural sales tax that we get, and we just to give you an example of a couple of things that was been used for a marine trades. Grant was given / loan was given years ago to help a company move down to our waterfront. We had a last in dollar for a senior workforce housing that the Opportunity Council's doing. It's called the Bellis Fair Senior Project. So we have to make sure people know that that program is in existence. Make sure that that's not an exclusive mailing list when we're ready to do grants every year. I think we have to look at things like creative things like expanding our value-added agriculture industry. There's a lot of opportunity, I think, for us to do that next step and have value-added products that we can can expand our business opportunities. So I think better working environment, I guess, and that's a big thing with wages and housing. But we did have a green company that made solar panels leave our area, and that's important. We got that kind of work here as well.
Thank you. Misty?
Thank you for this important question. There is a lot of conversations that are had with local businesses regarding moving out of Whatcom County because we have taxed people out of this area. And there's also been a ton of red tape that has kept people from wanting to stick around, build their businesses out. I agree that the port is a huge opportunity, and I think that we need to be collaborating a lot more. and again, bringing action to these conversations to make sure that our port is functioning for us, bringing in living wage jobs. I also believe that we can really do a lot to support our small farmers to make sure that they have the support that they need to continue farming here and also to build out their workforce. And then also, of course, supporting those local businesses, which are absolutely struggling because of the overbearing taxes and red tape. So one of the things that we could also be doing is just really solidifying our infrastructure, making sure that the county is prioritizing infrastructure instead of getting lost in the weeds, because I think a lot of people are seeing some of our infrastructure failing. Money that we should be spending on road funds, for example, are being moved around. And then, of course, building out that workforce training to help support bringing more people into the community, creating that stability for housing so that people can stick around, and just really strengthening those living wage jobs, which there's a huge opportunity for a lot of different avenues of business growth here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We're going to move on to our closing statements. And so this is an opportunity to make your 1-minute closing statement. I'm going to use your full names this time. So candidate Kyle Christensen, let's start with you.
All right, thank you. So yeah, just to start, yeah, it's hard to sum this up in a minute. I have the endorsements of all the small city mayors in my district. Also have the endorsement of the Whatcom County Association of Realtors, which means they trust me to have the answers when it comes to housing, as the candidate for District 3. Also the Association General Contractors. I've worked with union and non-union businesses and looked for ways to help them grow. When I was mayor during COVID, helping support businesses was huge for me. I also have the public safety support of fire, EMS, law enforcement. I have a lot of personal endorsements from a lot of those leaders in those areas. And then also just my financial experience as mayor, flood manager, and director of the Whatcom Long-Term Recovery Group right now, I think is going to make me a really good candidate because I'm very active and involved. And I am a trusted and proven leader. So thank you so much for your time tonight.
Thank you. Candidate Jessica Reenstra.
Thank you so much again for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. It is incredibly important that we're creating and preserving these spaces where we can share our open discourse, our ideas, our differences, and even some similarities in a manner where we're respecting one another and our communities. I believe that our local government should reflect the values of care, accountability, and community. I have spent over 20 years in healthcare and public service advocating for individuals, working across cultures and systems, and helping people navigate crises. That experience has really prepared me to lead with both compassion and competence, and I'm confident that my skill set would be a valuable addition to the County Council. I'm committed to policies that strengthen resilience, improve access to care and housing, and prioritize collaboration. I have been endorsed by individuals and elected officials at the federal, the state, and local level, and I am really ready to continue to use those relationships and continue those collaborations to make sure that what's happening in Whatcom County is the best for all of us. I really want to make sure that every family has access to the same opportunities I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Barry Buchanan.
Yes, thank you to the league, and thanks for everybody that is getting an opportunity to see this. I'm going to start with public service has been my lifelong work. I've served 7 years in the Navy. I served as the president of my Leonard Streets Neighborhood Association. I've served on the Whatcom County Council as well as the Bellingham City Council. And my work has always been around collaboration and how we can work together to make our community better. My endorsements go from the Association of General Contractors to the trade unions. They also go from the Whatcom County Association of Realtors to Sierra Club and the Washington Conservation Action Fund and the firefighters. So I have the broadest set of endorsements I've ever had in any campaign, and I'm very proud of that. It's because I'm a collaborator. I want to help everyone move this county forward. And I believe the only way we could do this is together. We are our greatest own resource.
Thank you. Candidate Misty Flowers.
Thank you so much, League of Women Voters, for allowing us the opportunity to speak tonight. And thank you to all of you candidates. It's always informative for me, and I just really appreciate the conversations. So I'm running for Whatcom County Council at large because it's about the people. It's about creating results that really support responsible solutions for our county. And I'm committed to building a Whatcom County that's safe, affordable, transparent, and compassionate for everybody. I'd be honored to earn your support. I am focused on reducing the cost of living for all families, increasing living wage jobs, expanding housing availability, and enhancing government accountability and financial responsibility. We really need to have people in office that have the courage to make those hard decisions, to make sure that the decisions that we are making, the policies we're putting forward, are not negatively impacting our community. And that does include collaboration, making sure that everybody comes to the table that is being affected, and taking the time to really listen to what they have to say, so that they are represented appropriately. Thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you. Candidate Elizabeth Boyle.
Thank you. Thank you so much, the League of Women Voters. And thanks to everyone that's listening to us on this forum. It means a lot to each of us that you're actively engaged in the process. And, you know, in just a few weeks, we'll have the general election. And we ask that not just that you vote, but also please ask your friends and your families, your coworkers, and see how high we can get our percentages up for the voter turnout. When more people are engaged in the process, our community is stronger. So please do everything you can as an individual to bring out the voters, and we'll do the same as our candidates as well. We're really grateful that our campaign has been strongly endorsed by so many different progressive organizations and the Whatcom Democrats, both the tribes, Lummi and Nooksack, so many unions. I'm just really grateful for that support. But I'll tell you, I'd be honored to serve on the County Council for District 2, and so we can build affordable, a more affordable, welcoming place for everyone here in Whatcom County. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Candidate Maya Morales.
Last year, you elected me to serve on our County Charter Review Commission for our District 2. And in my service this year, I've brought forward everything I promised each of you, which was to fight for our futures, to work to make our government work for the sum of us and not just some of us. And I'm so proud to be the first elected and candidate in Whatcom County to have earned the endorsement of the Working Families Party, as well as many community members and UFCW 3000 and SCIU 1199 Northwest, both unions that have many, many hardworking hourly wage workers who are women and people of color among their working members, as well as the endorsement of the Washington Housing Alliance Action Fund, Planned Parenthood, Pro-Choice Washington, Women of Color in Politics, the National Women's Political Caucus of Washington, the Alliance for Gun Responsibility. I'm also endorsed by national organizations that help get more LGBTQ+ leaders into office, LPAC and the Victory Fund. And most importantly, I'm really proud to have knocked over 5,000 of your doors. So thank you so much for being here tonight, and thank you for your votes.
Thank you. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I thank the candidates, all of you, for being here today and for their interest in running for public office. I think it takes great courage. Voters can find more information about the candidates in the voter pamphlet mailed by the Whatcom County Auditor's Office. The ballots will be mailed on October 15th. Your ballot must be postmarked or in a ballot drop box before 8 p.m. on Tuesday, November 4th, 2025. So don't forget that important date. Please remember to sign the ballot envelope, and if mailing by the Postal Service, we recommend mailing early. Voter registration information, including change of address and printing lost ballots, is available at votewa.gov. So thank you everyone for being here, and thank you for those of you tuning in to watch this really important forum. Good evening.